Do you know there's like like a huge following of people that like Kale? It's crazy.
Is it because they were pronouncing his name Cole? Because I feel like that would make it better.
We're the bookends, people.
The in-depth book review you never asked for.
Episode 3 of this podcast. What are we doing? What's the book this week?
It's Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. Heir.
Heir of Fire. Okay.
She has inherited the fire.
Hi, I'm Michael.
That's Michael. I'm Clayton. I've not read this book, but they're going to fill me in.
I'm Christine, reading this series for the first time.
And I'm Katie, reading this for the second time.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
There's going to be spoilers. We're going to spoil everything pretty much about this book. So if you haven't read it yet, probably want to read it first. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you just want to be like me. You know, you're interested in these books, but you don't want to read them because you can't read. Good. We're in Wendelin. What's going on? Where does this start?
The story follows 3 different perspectives.
It starts with her being drunk on a rooftop doing nothing. She seems pretty depressed.
This guy named Rowan comes and finds her, takes her back to this castle, which is like where Demi Fae live.
In Mistford.
Aelin has questions for the queen.
Queen Maeve is queen of the Fae.
About the word keys. If someone has all 3 word keys, then they can like control the universe. Queen of the Fae is like, Rowan will train you, and then whenever he feels like you're ready, then you can come talk to me.
What's this guy like? I'm assuming it's a guy.
Beautiful.
Is it a guy? Beautiful man.
He's got a face tattoo, white hair.
That's hot.
Clayton gets it.
Rowan just ends up training her how to take control of her Fae abilities, and eventually she's able to unlock the ability to use fire magic. About half of her story in the book is this big long training montage. The king has sent this advance party of a few of these like super powerful Vow and like a big contingent of soldiers to attack the stronghold of Mistfold. Just so happens that Aelin is there. And
after that big fight, Rowan's like, all right, you're ready to meet Maeve. And they go to Doriel. Aelin sets the whole city on fire without setting it on fire. She like is holding everyone in flames without burning them, and she's like, let Rowan go or I'm gonna kill everyone in your city.
Aelin was like, I'll give you back your ring if you let go of Rowan. And she was like, okay, well, I didn't really need him anyway, and she let him go.
And then Rowan made a blood oath.
Rowan had some type of blood oath to that queen. Like he had to do whatever she said. So he's finally set free.
We've got the boring story of there's Dorian and Kale.
Dorian falls in love with a healer, and then his dad beheads her in front of him. Another love interest for Dorian gone. He reveals he has magic. His dad puts a black collar around his neck, so now we think he's got some Vow prints in him.
And a general from Terrasen comes to town. It's Aelin's cousin, Aedion. He's also trying to like double cross the king. He pretends that he is most loyal.
Literally like never protects anyone, just like stands there like
he runs away. He runs away, the little bitch.
Aedion is locked up, and Dorian is basically enthralled to the king, and Kale's just like, I'm getting out of here. But the king is raising this like army of wyverns in the mountains, different parts of the kingdom where he's just creating all kinds of demons and wyverns and all kinds of crazy beasts and monsters.
There's like one witch in particular that the book follows. Her name is Manon, and she's awesome.
Kind of another training montage of her trying to like tame her wyvern and become like wing leader of like the whole clan. At the end of the book, she is in control of like the entire swarm of wyverns and their riders.
How do you guys like this book? You know, what did you think about it?
I'd say 4.8.
Oh, wow. Okay, so this is like the best one so far for you.
Because yeah, this is where it gets really good. Rowan and Manon show up, but it gets better, so I can't give it a 5.
Christine, what do you think?
I gave it a 4. I like the new characters. I'm excited to see where the story's gonna go, but the book still just felt like it was leading up to something. So I'm ready for the good stuff.
And Michael, what's your take?
Yeah, I'd give this about a 4.
Okay.
It would be higher, except the Dorian, Kale, Aedion story is just very, very boring. But the Manon story is so good. But yeah, I totally agree with Christine. This is like the 3rd book in a row where it feels like we're like setting up for this big thing that's about to happen. Very, very excited for where this is going.
This is still setting it up, but pretty much best book so far. Can't really get a 5-star review until Kale dies, at least. Predictions, you're not allowed to participate, Katie. I'm going to predict that Kale is going to have a heroic moment and he's going to die a hero. What about you, Christine? What do you predict is going to happen here?
She is going to somehow get connected with the witches, and they're all going to turn on the king.
Yeah, that feels like a thing that's going to happen, because the last scene we see with Rowan, there's like a change of heart, or that she could be more than just an evil witch. All right, this time, our weather report live. Katie, what do we have to say?
Thanks, Michael. Out here, there's a storm a brewing. It's crackling, a lot of electricity in the air, but hasn't hit yet. There's like a squall that's off screen. Like it's not even on my map with Dorian and Sorsha, but then she died. We can go to our field reporter, Christine.
Yeah, nothing really happened. The slow burn is still burning. We're still waiting for it to catch flames. Even though it's just the Heir of Fire, it's got a slow burn.
Let's just move on to the meat and potato stuff. Let's get the PowerPoint slides out.
So here's my presentation: Wild and Wonderful Wyverns and Where to Find Them. So wyverns are, I guess, in the same family as dragons, but I think this chart or this graph here kind of shows the difference. Really, the key difference between the wyvern and the dragon is you remove the front legs, the wings are actually connected, kind of like you're a pterodactyl, and there's all these other different mythological creatures where you can keep subtracting or adding different body parts. I guess the key, maybe most familiar ones would be the wyvern, the dragon, the drake, and the lung dragon, which you might see in like Chinese mythology.
I'm sorry, what is the...
So,
can we go back to the worm dragon? Whatever that was.
just the worm?
No, I've heard of that before.
The worm plus 2 wings.
The amphither.
I don't know much about amphither or whatever this is.
The whole club
it looks
amphither.
Cool though.
I think that would be the most terrifying to encounter. Or a lindworm. I don't know. That's also creepy to me.
The lindworm.
The lindworm would be scary.
Yeah, I guess the key idea of the wyvern is essentially that you don't have those front 2 legs, or they're connected to the wings, and very often wyverns don't breathe fire, but dragons do breathe fire. And wyverns are often described as having either really noxious or poisonous breath, maybe, or maybe like poisonous tails or stingers. So how are dragons and wyverns described in like media? So here's a clip from Aragon, where the dragon looks like, maybe the classical dragon, 4 legs and wings. Here's a dragon from Harry Potter, but it's really a wyvern because it doesn't have those front legs. And here's an original drawing from Tolkien of Smaug from The Hobbit, and it has wings and 4 legs. But in the movie, they got rid of the front legs and combined them into the wings. So, what's really going on here? The dragons in Game of Thrones actually might be better described as wyverns, but I don't know if Mother of Dragons rolls off the tongue a little better than like Wielder of Wyverns. And, probably don't want to question that. In video games, the wyvern dragon difference is really all over the place. Here's a picture of the main dragon from Skyrim, which is all about fighting dragons, but it's really a wyvern. It doesn't have the front legs. Here's a wyvern that you hunt in The Witcher, and it's definitely a wyvern, but it's kind of hairy, a little weird looking. Here's Spyro the dragon, definitely a dragon, spits fire, front legs. Here's the Ender dragon from Minecraft, which is pretty amazing. It's a polygon game, but they're still able to give it all the legs it needs. In Pokemon, here we've got Dragonite. It has 4 legs and wings. It's definitely a dragon. And here's Charizard, same thing, but it's not a dragon type. It's a fire type. And here's Aerodactyl. It's a rock type, not a dragon, but it's definitely a wyvern. And here's Gyarados. It doesn't have any legs, any wings.
It's a worm.
You might call it a worm, but it's actually based off of Chinese mythology of I guess a fish or a carp that jumps over a waterfall and turns into a flying dragon. If any of you have watched How to Train Your Dragon, Katie, I'm getting like lots of feedback.
I'm sorry, babe.
If you ever watch How to Train Your Dragon, you've got Hiccup's dragon, Toothless. It's definitely a dragon, and it's actually kind of similar to the dragon that's described in the book, where Manon has to do some repairs to it, gives it like silk wings. Astrid's dragon is oh god, what's his name? Well, it's not actually a dragon; it's a wyvern, and it fights using like its spike tail and like shooting spikes out. And in How to Train Your Dragon 2, the king of dragon is actually just a drake. It doesn't fly at all.
Oh.
In Dungeons and Dragons, thankfully, they've kept up the dragon, drake, and wyvern difference. Here we have the wyvern, the dragon, and the drake. All maintain the dragon has its breath attack, the wyvern maintains its poison tail, and the drake stalks around and doesn't really have much fire abilities at all. Turns out Mushu isn't really a dragon at all. It's really kind of a drake, or maybe a lungworm. If you ever watch Dragon Ball Z, the dragon in Dragon Ball Z is really closer to a worm than anything. And Drake is definitely a drake because he has 4 limbs, no wings, and some say he does spit fire.
Oh man! No.
And so here we see probably the quintessential witch. Here we have the witch, just as described in the book, with the metal claws riding on an armored wyvern. And here's a meme I threw in. I didn't really know how to connect it at all, but I thought it was kind of funny. This is how I think Aelin and Rowan are going to be once they meet up with Kale at some point later on in the book. So there's my big prediction.
Thank you.
That's it.
That was fantastic. I actually didn't know the difference between all these types of dragonoid creatures.
That was awesome.
So what's like a 3-headed dragon or drake? Is that like a hydra? What's the difference there?
It depends. If it doesn't have
Yeah.
any legs,
Like a kind of hydra type of thing.
3 heads. If it
3-headed worm.
Maybe like a chimera.
My presentation is Iron Teeth Witch Comparative Anatomy, Touch of Comparative Physiology, where I will compare unique Iron Teeth Witch features with other animal species. So the first thing that I thought was notable was the retractable iron teeth, which has 3 pretty distinct components. 1, the retractable bit. 2, they're made of iron. And 3, in order to have a retractable iron teeth, that means you have 2 full sets of teeth, which is kind of crazy. So, first example, we have the rabbit. The rabbit doesn't have a full set of secondary teeth, but they do have 2 sets of maxillary incisors. And the columnmost incisor, also known as the peg tooth, is shown here. And it's where the mandibular incisors can contact with to help shred food. Another example of having multiple sets of teeth is like every shark ever. But while they do have rows and rows upon teeth, they don't really have that organized structure like we would expect in a humanoid in terms of the types of teeth and positioning. Here we have the sheep's head fish, which has disturbingly human-like teeth in multiple rows, which I have included in order to haunt your nightmares.
a monstrosity.
This is disgusting.
Next, we have the sling jaw wrasse, which is my first example of an animal with retractable teeth. Now, they only have 1 set, and it's not their teeth that would retract, but actually their entire jaw, which is propulsed forward and creates a tube-like structure that allows them to suck food in. That's pretty cool. Another animal with retractable teeth, a lot of people think of snakes and their fangs, more specifically the viperids or the viper type snakes. Snakes have evolved to have multiple of their skull, multiple bones that hold their teeth, versus us humans, it's just our maxilla that holds most of our teeth. But in vipers, the maxilla just holds the fang. And it's also hinged at this, the maxilla here is shown in green. It's hinged at this prefrontal bone shown in orange. And with a certain coordination of muscular movements and the opening of the jaw, that maxilla hinges forward and the fang comes out. Super cool. It's also, when it's not doing this, covered by a mucosal flap, which you see here. And as they bite into their prey, that flap goes up and you can see the fang. Now here I think is the best example. We have the moray eel, which has 2 complete sets of jaw. It has its oral jaw and its pharyngeal jaw. The pharyngeal jaw shown here on this x-ray, back here in the pharynx, or the proximal throat, so the upper part of your throat, which is crazy. But here's a little video.
They have a set of movable jaws in the back of their throats. They attack their prey by biting with their oral jaws, and then this second set of pharyngeal jaws is drawn forward, grabs the prey, and then retracts, taking it down the eel's gullet. This set of pharyngeal jaws has these terrifying, sharp, backwardly curved teeth all over it.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
literally like Alien.
It's the xenomorph.
And in case, you're ever snorkeling and you're not sure, is this a moray eel? I have a nice song for you. If they stalk on the reef and have a few steps of the deep, that's a moray. Oh, so great. Okay. Now, the last bit was to find an animal with iron teeth. I couldn't find any, but there is a certain species of bloodworm which has a copper-based compound that makes up the majority of its proboscis. Which,
Ew.
oh, it gets grosser. Just you wait.
Teeth. It has metal teeth.
Like a Bond villain.
Like a Bond villain. You got it. Yes. This.
Okay, the next feature that I'd like to discuss is the retractable iron nails. So most cats, except for the cheetah, which only has partially retractable nails, foxes, viveridae, have retractable nails, which is made possible by this dorsal elastic ligament, shown in red here, that connects the last bone, or the distal phalanx of the digit, to the second bone, and that last bone holds the claw. And so when you retract that ligament, the claw comes in and goes out, as shown in this video. Now, while this makes a good analogy for retractable claws, if you pictured it on a human, it'd be kind of gross, right? Like that last digit would like come in and out, and their fingers, when they didn't have their iron nails out, would be like weirdly contracted. So I found another species. Oops, not again. Okay. The Japanese auton frog, which has a whole separate bone, like spur, that when the males use for defense or mating, they actually push the bone spur out through their skin. So the skin's closed and they open it up, like send it out and then attack, which I honestly thought was a great comparison for iron teeth witches. Like, makes sense. Okay, and then the last feature is that they have their notable blue blood. So in most mammals, well, all mammals, the blood is red because they contain hemoglobin, this compound that binds the oxygen and carries it through the blood. And at the center of this hemoglobin unit is iron, which gives the blood its red color. Now, in a lot of spiders, crustaceans, some mollusks, octopi, squid, they have a similar compound called hemocyanin, which serves the same function. It carries blood through the oxygen. I said that backwards, carries oxygen through the blood. But the center of this compound is copper, which actually absorbs all light except for blue. It reflects blue, and that's why blood looks blue. Which actually makes sense for iron teeth witches. The lore says they have so much magic in them that they had to have iron teeth or iron nails, otherwise they would just evaporate from this plane and join with the universe or something weird like that. But when you compare the humans who have iron in their blood, these witches don't have iron in their blood. They have copper. That makes sense why they would need iron elsewhere in order to ground them. So in conclusion, iron teeth witch anatomy.
That is
Yeah.
awesome. I was not picturing
That's sick.
the witches like this, but now I really understand what they look like. Very weird, very strange creatures.
So, Katie, when the witches were doing their big competition to determine who was going to be the wing leader, you could say it was a Squid Game.
Did you have that prepared? Did you see her presentation beforehand?
Michael, these things come effortlessly to Michael. He doesn't have to can these kind of puns and whatnot. They just come to him.
Yep.
My presentation is, if other characters in the book were Fae, what would their spirit animal be? AKA their other form. Because as we said, Aylin's form is human, which is very convenient because there's no magic allowed on the King's Continent, right? So she has to stay in whatever her spirit animal is in terms of like the way that I put it in this presentation. But maybe if she had a different form, like what if she was a crocodile in her other form, and so the rest of the time she was on the continent, she was just slithering around like a crocodile. Anyway, so for Manon, I did this interesting bird that I didn't even know existed called a butcher bird. One, they have black on their beaks, which I was like, well, she's a black beak, which perfect. They fly in packs. They skewer their prey with their beak. That's why they've got the little like hook on them, if you can tell from there, which is pretty badass. And Manly is badass. So this is what I think her spirit animal would be if she was Fae. Adian, that's how we said pronounce it. I said his spirit animal would be a wolf. He's very fierce and loyal to his cousin Aelin. He is deadly. He's one of the great generals in the King's continent. And he's very courageous. As they said at the end of the book, he sacrificed himself so that Kale could run away, basically.
For Ayla's happiness.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see what Kale is.
Yeah, I cannot wait to see Kale.
Dorian is a golden retriever because he's also loyal. He's adorable. He's never not cute. He's good looking. The story always describes him as good looking. Everyone thinks so, just like a golden retriever. He's everyone's best friend. Kale is a possum because he's got dark beady eyes. Usually one area as long as food and water are readily available. Possums favor dark, secure areas. And when threatened or harmed, they are not protective. They will play possum, mimic the appearance and smell of a dead or sick animal.
Wikipedia.
So in conclusion, we still don't like it.
Good citations. Good.
Oh yeah, that's spot on.
Obvious word for word.
Oh goodness. I feel bad for the
He was
possum.
hard to figure out.
Do you know there's like a huge following of people that like Kale? It's crazy.
Is it because they were pronouncing his name Cole? Because I feel like that would make it better.
We need awards. You have to award us.
Most useful information award is going to go to Michael. I didn't realize how to distinguish between dragonoid creatures. Now I know.
That's
now I
some
know. Count the
day-to-day
legs.
info.
So now, when you look up in the sky, you'll see
Mainly, I see wyverns, I think. Best graphics and media usage is going to go to Katie. Videos, it really helped me. Eels are terrifying.
Hades was definitely
Yeah, that
scary.
really. Yeah, yours was the scariest. Christine, I'm going to say best sources.
Without a
I
doubt.
get that Wikipedia.
All right, so this seems like a great book. Lots of creatures. Kale's not in it that much since he was in it. Couldn't give it 5 stars, but otherwise we would. What's next on our list here?
The next book is The Assassin's Blade, which is a prequel, happens before all the other books we've read so far. If anyone has any of their own details, share with us. We'll post them.
Subscribe to us on YouTube. Like and subscribe.